Welcome to Blue Gum Park, Australia. Today we're going to be starting on building a new back on my ute to make it waterproof and lockable. So I'm just showing you, I do a lot of projects and I'm a bit of a hoarder. I've got a lot of scrap steel here, as you can see. I go and collect that from recycling yards and that. When I see some steel, it'll be useful for some sort of project. So I've got quite a considerable pile of steel. So the framework for this back I'm putting on the ute is actually made from recycled steel. The only steel I did buy is the actual metal sheeting to clad it and a little bit of steel to fill in and support it. So here's my fire, because it's a nice 5 degrees at the moment in my shed while I'm working, so a good fire and a nice pot belly that I made. That's my own pot belly. Keeps us a bit warm. You can see the sun shining, but that's only a bit of a ploy. It's not that warm. It's very cold. So what I'm doing here is stripping out the ute to remove the existing building racks I've put in there. I've had them there for about 5 years now. They bolt right through, so I've got to remove the panels there to get access to the bolts to unbolt them, so I can clear it all up, ready to build a new back. So this back I'm building will be like a panel van, but because it's a ute, I don't like the fiberglass ones with a big high back on them. This one here is going to actually be the same shape and height as the cab right through. So now I've cleared up, I'm putting these panels back on. Now where I am there at the moment, the fuel tank is directly below that. So when I'm finished putting the panels on, you'll see me come back over here in a minute with some duct tape. So I want to seal up all the cracks, so when I'm welding, no sparks fall down where the fuel tank is. So there I am there, sealing up all the holes and cracks where the fuel tank is underneath the tray, and I'm covering up the fuel filler cap there on the other side, so that there's no chance of a spark going into where there's a fuel tank and causing a possible fire, which we don't want that. So now I'm putting conduits in there back there. I'm just hammering a little bit of timber in there to wedge them here in a second. So the beauty of conduit is, here we go, got the timber there now, going to wedge it in there. The beauty of conduit is I can heat it up with a heat gun, and I'm folding it to match the profile on the cab at the front there, so I'm getting the same angle. I'm going to, now I'm taping some string lines from the cab to the conduit, so I'm going to have a string line on each side of the cab and one down the centre of the cab to get the heights. So I'll go along measuring it, because the tray itself gets lower towards the back, so I can't measure off the sides. I'm measuring off the bottom of the tray because it's flat, but the sides are not. They angle back down towards the back there. So now I'm getting a cross piece there to get the middle of the roof, so that when I make my frame, it'll be the same profile and the same height. So when I clad it, it should look exactly the same as the actual cabin as it goes through. So I'll just put a little string there to hold it, because the conduits, as it's a little bit flexy, moves, so that string's holding it back. And I'm just cleaning up the paint off the sides of the ute where I'm going to weld the frame on. So with a MIG, which I'm using a MIG on with a very small wire, I'm using 0.6mm weld wire, because if you use bigger wire, it's going to need a few more amps and it'll warp your car panels. It's just too big. So I'm using 0.6 wire for panel work, which most panel beaters do. So now I'm getting all the gear in place, got my vise here. So I'm just cutting off little lugs. This bits of metal I've got here is scrap metal. It's got a couple of lugs on it. So I'm just removing them. Now what I'm doing is cutting slots, not right through, just through the side and through the side walls, but not right through the metal. So you cut it and then you can fold it, so you get a curve into square steel. So I'm sitting here. The first one's always the hardest one. You muck about until you perfect that shape. Once you've perfected that shape, you copy it for the others. So contemplation's always good, as I was sitting there thinking about it. So day 2, I'm in a different outfit now. So it takes quite a while. So it's sped right up and there's bits missing. So I'm going to go through the whole process from start to finish. So this part 1's just showing you how I built the frame and how I lined it up. So you can see me there holding it on the side, and I'm actually matching it so it's just under the string lines, because the cladding metal, you can see the 2 big sheets of it against the side wall there of the shed, the 2 big sheets of steel there. That's going to be cut up and clad on it later on. So at the moment, we're just getting the curve right in the side of the frame. So I'm just cutting and tacking to get the right thing. Once I'm happy with it, I will weld it to the vehicle. But at the moment, I'm still playing around with it. So I'm putting a bottom plate on there now. So here we go. So basically, this all goes through the shaping and the framing. So I'm going to stop talking now because it's going to drive you insane. And yeah, you can sit back and watch me at high speed frame this up. So I muck about a bit to get it right, because you're better off mucking around getting the building frame correct, because then it's easy to put the cladding on. If you get the building frame wrong, you're going to struggle the whole way along. So it's worth taking quite some time to get it all to the right shape, profile, and weld it in position. So sit back and watch the frame build itself around the car. One thing you'll see when I start welding here in a minute, I'm putting plywood up against the back of the cab of the window. That's so no hot sparks hit the glass of the back window. If you let hot welding sparks hit the glass, it will actually shatter the window. So I'm protecting that wherever I'm welding by putting timber up between the welding and the glass itself. So it's very important to do that, otherwise it will shatter your glass on you if a whole hot weld spark hits the glass. So here I am starting to tack in the rest of the frame. Got plenty of timber there protecting the back window. So this is getting towards the finishing bits, just putting some side bits in the middle there. So the blue bits of metal is the ones I had to buy. The side bits there are just to weld all the panels on, so the more supports the better it is, so it won't slap about when you're driving along, because if I don't put enough supports on it, that tin is going to vibrate and slap and make a terrible noise when you're driving along on the road, so that's the last thing you want. So I've just got to match the same angle on these supports on the side, so just going along there. So we're almost finished, so coming towards the end of part one of the makeover on the Ute. So I'm just welding the side bits in, just going to put some in the middle, and then that's pretty much the frame is done. I've just got to put a couple of little bits on the back, but yeah, coming up here, so part one we could say is complete. There you go. I'm just going and finalise the welding, and I'll go around and touch it up with a grinder again. So I really appreciate people tuning in and watching these videos. I'm hoping you're enjoying them. This is the last little bit there going in there that the tailgate will seal off to make it weatherproof at the back. So I'm going to make another tailgate at the top with a window in it so I can see through when I'm driving. So there we are, we've finished the frame, and thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it and really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.